I don't know. I'm thinking that the fisheye is kind of crazy and gross, and I could see you eating a fish.
You can
I mean
see
that
me
in the,
doing that. What
in
did
the
I
best.
say?
I mean, you're PK. You know,
Josh, we barely know each other. How you already see me eating fish eyes?
Oh,
Like,
man.
what?
What's up, and welcome, our friends and strangers, listeners to the Church Chat podcast. I am so pumped to be back with another incredible conversation about ministry, the kind of conversations you wish you were having about ministry. Maybe you don't even know you wish you were having these kind of conversations, but for sure, by the end of it, you're going to know how badly you have been missing these kind of conversations. I'm one of your hosts, and my name is Josh.
And I'm Emily, and today's guest is a really talented vocalist. She's done stand-up comedian.
What?
She's done stand-up comedy. Oh my gosh, one of those things. And she's currently doing ministry in Staten Island, New York. Ashley Welborn, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, guys. This is really fun. I'm very excited.
You did mention that you're a podcast junkie.
Oh,
People
so
should
much.
People should not be listening to other podcasts other than this one. But if they were, like, what are some of the podcasts that you listen to?
Oh, my word. Well, okay. I love history that doesn't suck. I'm a little bit of a
Okay.
history geek.
Yeah.
This guy's a
Okay.
professor, and he's so good, and it's really, really good. Kind of obsessed with Teddy Roosevelt right now. I'm such a dork. I'm such a dork, you guys. I also love the Being Known podcast with Dr. Kurt Thompson. He's a believer and a neurobiologist and a therapist. So his perspective is really interesting on
Ooh,
spiritual
that's-
growth and formations. He's doing a thing on wisdom right now, really cool. And then I listen to some Enneagram stuff. Those of you that think it's witchcraft, I'm sorry. It's not
It's
witchcraft.
not. It's not.
It's not.
It's okay. It's okay. It's just a tool. It's just a helpful tool. And I'm studying to be a therapist, so it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I listen, kind of a mixed bag, but a lot of therapy stuff. I like Michael John Cusick's podcast, Restoring the Soul, too. That's really great because he was a pastor and he burnt out hard. So he has some really cool advice for just staying connected to God, staying connected to your wife. His wife is actually a betrayal expert.
Wow.
Kind of like how Brené Brown is a shame expert.
Mhm.
His wife is a betrayal expert. Like she has a doctorate in this, and they work together to help couples who've gone through betrayal to overcome it and
Man.
heal. It's really cool stuff.
That
So-
That's
is
pretty heavy, too.
amazing.
That's my short list, guys. That's my short
Okay.
I
list.
want to be
All
a
right, well,
specialist, but I want to be a specialist of
something.
like hair fades or
Yeah.
lollipops. Something little.
That's an untapped market,
Right?
Josh. I think that you could do this.
Maybe I should do
I
another-
do.
Okay. Ashley, what do you call those things?
What things?
What?
Lollipop. Like, I call them suckers, but I
Yeah.
think maybe it's a regional thing. What do you call them?
You know what? I gotta tell you, if it has bubble gum or Tootsie Roll in the middle, it's a lollipop. And if it doesn't, it's a sucker.
It's a sucker.
We're learning all kinds of new things.
I don't know why, but
Yeah,
in my world,
Hmm.
that's what it is.
Yep. I like
Sounds
it.
like we need
Okay.
somebody else to start being an expert in those kind of things.
Mhm.
Yeah, you could put that in your doctoral thesis, Josh. I think that would be helpful for that.
And I was going to say, you already are a specialist. Your job title here is strategy
You almost forgot what
specialist.
my job title was right there. That pause was a little awkward.
No.
Thank you for that, our
okay.
communications
Mm-hmm. director.
director.
Yeah, I can communicate well, clearly.
He's on it.
So, Ashley, we do this thing to start off the podcast where we hit up 2 truths and a lie. It's such a cool thing. We want to force everybody right down to our level by starting them out with some lies.
Yeah.
And I'm just gonna say I stink at this part, but do
And
you,
I was just going to say, I'm
do
winning.
you got
so
some
I'm really
for us?
excited.
Oh,
Can you lay 2
okay.
truths and a lie on us?
Okay. Yes, I thought about this. Thank you for telling me ahead of time because I get like I'm the person that if they pull this game out and I freeze because I get like there's so many possibilities. Like how do I? Okay, so I have eaten an eyeball of a fish. My middle name is Nicole, and I'm really bad at memorizing scripture.
Don't mind me. I'm
Terribly
trying to
gross.
cheat.
I was gonna say she's Googling me on Facebook like it's her
I
middle name.
actually,
Listen.
yeah.
That's how you've been winning. You've been cheating this entire time. So you're a PK, right? Pastor's kid for all our listeners.
I'm a PK. I'm a GK. I'm a grandkid. I'm a pastor's PGK.
Ooh,
So,
there's some
I got
hierarchy right there.
you know,
I got game in the pastor's kid department, okay?
what that says to me is that you were at least forced to try to memorize scripture.
I was indeed.
But I'm a
I was
PK
indeed.
too.
But was she good
and
at
I was
it?
forced to, and I am terrible at it. I don't know. Look at Emily. You listeners can't see Emily madly researching on her phone, which I call foul immediately.
Although, man, it does not help that your husband doesn't tag you.
Immediately, no. I don't know. I'm thinking that the fisheye is kind of crazy and gross, and I could see you eating a fish.
You can
I mean
see
that
me
in the,
doing that. What
in
did
the
I
best.
say?
I mean, you're PK. You know,
Josh, we barely know each other. How do you already see me eating fish eyes?
Oh,
Like,
man.
what?
All right, I'm gonna guess.
Man, I'm
you're
lost.
bad. I think the truth. You really are bad at memorizing scripture.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Nicole. I don't think that's your middle name.
I'll go with
Correct.
fisheye.
My middle name's Elizabeth.
So that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna also say
Reign Supremes.
you've just
Okay,
looked
well,
it
I
up
guess
on
we'll
the
give you a
internet.
half. I couldn't find it. I was just
Yeah.
lost in her fun. I was actually looking at this beautiful picture of you
Oh, thanks.
on the Ritz. So.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
those of you
yeah.
that
Okay.
don't know, Ashley's very involved in ministry at Salem Free Church. There's just
Yeah.
Salem Church
It's just Salem Church.
in Staten Island, New York. I've been there. Such a cool place. I'm
Yeah.
friends with your husband, John. Such a cool dude. And also,
is.
he was
He
telling
is.
me that while he's waiting after church with his Bible hungrily standing there, you're the one everybody flocks around to have conversations with after church. I had this beautiful picture of him just standing on the curb like a child,
like
waiting to
ready.
go home. This grumpy look on his face because he's hungry, while you're like yucking it up with all the folk.
Well, you know what it is though? Like, okay, our kids are getting a little older and a little more self-sufficient. I have teenagers now, and I have a niece who moved in with us, which is great. She's going to college here in New York, and she gives the kids a ride home after church. And so, like, all these years, I was carting babies and nursing some kid in an office somewhere, trying to like do that. And I'm such a social person, such a relational person. So I'm just sort of like, it's like years of like, repressing my social gene. And now the kids are old enough and they're at home eating lunch already. And I'm just like, let's do this. Let's get into your mess. Tell me about it. What's going on? Like, so I think it's kind of like it built up to this moment where I'm just finding so much joy in relationship with people. And so like I could, yeah. And it's a pretty accurate picture. He's usually like pulling my arm a little like, hey, probably we're good now. There's another church that meets after us now, so I got to wrap it up.
That
I
makes
got to wrap
me
it up
so
so the
happy.
other church can come in. So
That picture is one that brings me great joy. You're also studying to be a counselor. Is that right?
yeah.
Where
I'm
are
in
you
my master's
going?
program.
Where are you going to?
Yeah, I'm at Southeastern Baptist Theological Seminary,
Cool.
which is really cool, and it's a program for licensure in marriage and family therapy. But it's basically like a licensure program plus 1 year of seminary.
Oh wow.
So
Ooh.
I'm getting to do all the theology and the Old Testament, New Testament, and I'm loving it so much. It's been such a great experience.
So are you gonna
So-
like hang a shingle and open up shop, or what's your plan?
Yeah, well, right now I work as an intake coordinator at the only Christian counseling center on this island,
Wow.
which is really cool. They just opened pretty recently. So I'm working part-time there. I'm going to start my internship, start counseling there actually this summer, which is really exciting. But because like I've been counseling people for many years
Mm-hmm.
because it's just sort of the nature, even as a pastor's kid, kids would walk up to me. I remember 9/11. We talk about that around here a lot because we live in New York City. So every time it comes around, it's like everybody wants to know your story of 9/11. We kind of go through it. Like I was sitting at a desk at my high school surrounded by people going, is this the end times? Like because it's just sort of the nature of they knew I was churchy. Like, and I didn't really even have to be qualified for that. But I don't know. I think my mom did a really good job of kind of encouraging me as a kid to be like, look, you have a lot of pressure on you and there's a lot of people watching you, but you could actually just use that for good. You could live up to what they believe you are by studying and working and trying to be available and trying to learn and be wise. And she was like, and you could be there for them and you could use the influence you have, even though you didn't earn it, you could use the influence you had for good. So I kind of always saw it like that, like, okay, I'm just gonna like learn how to counsel people and I'm gonna learn how to help people. And I, just got good mentors and asked for people to meet with me for coffee and teach me things. And I just decided I was going to counsel. So it's weird now because now I'm understanding that's what that is. It's like I was kind of raising kids and wanted to stay home, doing a lot of entrepreneurial stuff, like, the comedy and I ran an interior design business. I have a little LLC where I did that for a while. I taught voice lessons. I've done like all kinds of crazy things just so that I could like stay home with my kids and also bring in some income for our family. But I've been meeting with especially women for coffee, not thinking of it as counseling, but totally counseling for like a really long time. So I feel like I'm like walking in my calling right now. It's a really neat feeling. It's really exciting.
That's so cool.
That gives hope for the rest of us who maybe are not quite there yet. I love it that it can happen.
I'm turning 40 this year. There's plenty of time, you guys.
Okay, so I feel like you've already covered so much ground, and we want to talk about all of it. Like, we are super excited to talk to you. You're a versatile person. You do a lot, like you just mentioned. You've done a lot of things. You've had a lot of experiences, and so we're really excited to just jump into that. One thing we do want to talk to you about is being a PK. Josh is a PK. I feel like I'm an honorary PK. My uncle, who is a major father figure in my life, that's
a PN.
I feel like you're gonna
you're a niece.
Yes, I know.
Can we call it PK adjacent?
Thank you.
Adjacent.
That's one of Emily's favorite words.
Yes.
It is. So yeah, I am PK adjacent, and
now wait.
You are.
All of a sudden, we got a Jace. We're like making it cool.
I like it.
I
like it.
Yep. Since I don't have Riz, I can be adjacent to something.
You could have both. You could be Riz with your adjacent. It's all good.
Oh man. Okay.
There are so many people furiously Googling right now.
Like, what is she talking about? Okay, so tell us your experience about being a PK and a GK and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I'm going to talk about that, I have to first start by saying like I have all the church baggage. So anytime it's a kind of a nice like feature though as a pastor's wife because people will say to me like, oh, I don't know, I have a lot of church baggage, and I'll just be like, yeah, get in line, buddy. Like, we're all at the carousel waiting for our bag. So but like my parents had a really crazy tumultuous ministry. My dad was a Southern Baptist pastor for a while. He was Independent Baptist before that. So no pants. I did not wear pants. I wore skirts. Don't worry, I wasn't naked, but I did. I did not wear pants as a child. So I still remember my first pair when I was 11 and we switched to Southern Baptist. And I was like ducking behind trees because I was like, they're going to think I'm going to hell. Oh my goodness, I'm wearing pants. Like, I was very concerned about going on a hayride with a pair of sweatpants on. Mint green sweatpants. That was my first pair of pants. But
wow.
So yeah, so I've had like a mixed bag of pastor's kid experiences, I feel like, because we started out in kind of a weird beginnings, and then in Southern Baptist there was a lot more. I feel like there were a lot more people kind of looking to feed into me, and there's a little more love to that theology. It felt like, I know it sounds like a weird way to put it, but I definitely felt the spotlight. I definitely felt like people were watching. I felt that pressure, and I don't know that you can avoid it. I really thought I could help my kids avoid it. I think I had this idea that like my kids aren't going to have that experience. I think part of me thought a lot of that was my parents' fault. And I think the older you get, the more you're like, a lot of this is not your parents' fault.
Yeah.
A lot of this is cultural. A lot of this is in your own mind, even like, because I'm watching my kids. Sometimes my middle guy will say stuff like, I just feel like everybody is aware that I'm a pastor's kid. And I'm like, I just don't see anybody treating him different. I don't see that happening. But like he feels it. It's his reality. It's happening in his mind. And so we have to be kind of conscious of that while also just not letting our own landmines get tripped. I use that a lot in family therapy. I talk about how we all have landmines planted in us. And a lot of times the person who's stepping on the landmine did not plant it.
Right.
Like a lady walked up to me at church one time and was like, your kids are so cute. They're like little celebrities. And that's my New York impression.
Yeah, I
like
right
it.
on.
Okay, good. Excellent.
I just want to make sure you didn't miss
Spot
it.
on.
I just want to make sure. Okay. But it tripped my landmine. She didn't plant it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, I'm a pastor's kid, and I'm like, and my immediate response was like, my eyes got really wide, and I was like, no, they're not celebrities. You know what I mean? Like, I like totally like jumped on her a little bit. And then I had to just kind of like take a breath and be like, oh my word, I'm scaring this woman so much. And she was just trying to be sweet. She's just trying to like, in her mind, it's a compliment. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
right.
In her mind, she's being sweet to my kids, you know? But I was like, they are normal kids. They are regular kids. Don't say that. They are not celebrities, you know? So I have some baggage. I have some baggage. But yeah.
How has that? I have tons of baggage too. I mean,
Good.
I
Good.
hated
Welcome to the
church
carousel.
for a long time, and
Yeah, so did I.
that's like impacted how I raised my kids. You know, I have strong boundaries, and I do it different than a lot of people. You know,
Yeah.
verdict's still out on how it works, but like, how has it informed? How has that part of you informed like how you parent?
Well, you know, John is a pastor's kid too. My husband is also a pastor's kid, which is weird. And when we got together, we were like, never gonna do it. Not being in ministry at churches. Like it was a hard no. It was a hard no
Yeah,
for both of
because you
us.
guys started as evangelists and like singing and
Yeah. We were doing youth camps
yeah.
mostly. We started a youth camp and we loved it. Like we loved the interactions. We loved being able to go to a church and not like consistently go to that church because then you don't have to deal with all the problems from those people. And when God called us to the church in Virginia that we went to when our daughter was little, it was like both of us went into it with such a chip on our shoulder. Like we met with the guy, the pastor who was planting this church, and John came with like I'm not joking, I'm not exaggerating, 72 questions for him. Because we were like, we ain't doing it, you know?
Yeah.
That's
And
amazing.
he answered every question. It was so crazy. He was so sweet and so patient with us. And oddly enough, he's also the guy that did our premarital counseling when we were engaged. So he was really sweet and patient. I think he knew our baggage
Yeah.
and he was very patient with us. But he could obviously see something the Lord was doing before we could, you know? So I say that to say when we went into pastoring, we kind of did it a little bit kicking and screaming, a little bit. Like a little bit like, I don't know.
Like a
I don't know
lot
what
of
it
it.
is. A lot of it. And you bet everything we did, we were like, oh, we'll do it this way. And if you don't like it, you could get out of here. Because it was very like, I kept boxes in my basement, you guys. This is not a joke.
To leave?
I did not get rid of, because I was like, well, they'll fire us. Because that's what churches do with pastors is they fire them. So I was hoarding boxes in my basement
Oh my gosh.
for like 3 years. And finally, John came up from the basement one time and was like, I think maybe it's time we should just get rid of the boxes. Because, like, even if they fire us, we could get more boxes.
Yeah, like that's the
Like,
thing.
so it would be okay.
You can always get more
Just like,
boxes.
but this is my mindset. I'm like, I got to be prepared because they're definitely going to fire us. But they didn't. And they were so kind and so patient. So I think when I answer the question about how it affects our parenting, I'm so blessed, like so lucky that our first church was so gentle
Right.
with us. And so I felt like they gave me such a soft space to try out being a parent of PKs. They were and it was a farm community, and they could not care less about celebrity. They were just not into it. Most of the church didn't even know I was married to John. Like he would make some comment about like, yeah, I totally sleep with that worship leader. And they would be like, what did he say? And then he would be like, oh, we're married. She's my wife. Like,
Oh, this is so great.
which was so cool, you know, like that they didn't know. It was cool to me. So I felt like I had a very safe, eased in first experience for 7 years at that sweet church.
Okay, so it is very clear that you and John have done lots of ministry together.
Yeah.
How has that looked? And I'm sure it's evolved through your whole marriage, but like there's got to be some weird boundaries issues that arise from doing ministry together, but then also doing separate things. And the fact that John is, well, I don't know, maybe you can fill me in on this, but like John is the one that's paid to do this vocational ministry. You might not have always been paid to do ministry. So what does that look like and how has that evolved for you guys?
Yeah, I'm definitely not paid to do anything at this church, which is fine. Okay, so oh Lord, I was paid for a short time as the part-time worship leader because I was a worship major at Liberty when we went to that church in Virginia. And the pastor who was there before us was the pastor and the worship leader. So they lost both when he left. So it was like,
Oof.
whoa. So I said, look, I'll fill in for a while. I'll do what I can. I can help out for a while. And they paid me enough. I crap you not, enough
Yeah.
to
Barely.
to pay for a babysitter so that I
Oh.
could put the services together. And which that was all they could do. You know what
Right.
I mean? It was
Mm-hmm.
like basically as a church revitalization effort. Like it was basically a plant.
Right.
So, and I want to do it. I love ministry and I wanted to do it. So I'm not complaining about them. They did a great job. But I'm just saying it to say like that's my experience with being paid in ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And when I worked there as the worship leader under John, we found out we shouldn't do that. Because we're both aggressive personality types. Like we're both very leadership oriented. And like I would be like, here's the songs for this week. And he would be like, have you thought about this song? And I'd be like, have you thought about yourself right now? You want to check yourself before you wreck yourself? Because like I put a lot of effort in it. You know what I mean? And it was like every time he wanted to make a change, it was like a slam on my ability to be his wife, which is not true.
Mm-hmm.
And this is me problem. You know what I mean? But we were like, I think this is probably a little much. Like we like working side by side, but we don't want like him as my boss was not great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of discovered we work really well side by side, which is cool. And he's very good at empowering me. He's very good at like helping me walk into leadership roles. And he likes when he can kind of be my cheerleader and not have to like hold me to account and report. So we
Mm-hmm.
work well as each other's cheerleaders and each other's partners. So we think differently about it because of that one experience, which was only a few months because I got pregnant and I was like, I cannot do all of this. But yeah, so I think that's how it's like we're still learning. Like I don't know that we'll ever get it down, but I know we're good friends and we enjoy being together. And I think it's important for all husbands and wives to have things that they achieve side by side.
Hmm.
It's just a healthy thing for you guys to work together on something. And I know there's a lot of pastors' wives that feel like an obligatory, I have to do this for the church. John has done a really excellent job of constantly letting me know I don't have to do anything that I don't feel called to do.
I love
If I feel
that.
called to do something else, that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times when you have pastors who will talk to him or me and say, my wife is really unhappy and she feels like she's being put upon all the time. My first question is always like, what are you doing about that?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of that is just I wanted to be a good wife more than anything else. I wanted him to feel supported. And if the thing he cares about most is his ministry, buddy, you better bet I'm going to do what I got to do to support that. And I think it'd be the same if he was a plumber.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
want to support him in that because I want to be a good wife. I want him to feel supported and loved. So I think him constantly reminding me of like, I feel supported and loved, and you don't have to prove anything to me by what you do in ministry.
Hmm.
That matters.
That's really cool. So everybody's experience in this kind of world is so different. Especially when you're talking about pastors' wives, not everybody's gifted the same. There's different personalities. Some people are called to ministry. Some people aren't, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
What has your experience been like as a pastor's wife, maybe first? And then if you have some just general advice that kind of hits all pastors' wives, maybe like ones that are like you and ones that aren't like you, what would that kind of be?
I think I have to tell the story of when I was in college and I'm in a women's ministry class at Liberty University. And our professor, who was an older woman in the faith who was a pastor's wife, stood up and asked the question, how many of you feel called to be a pastor's wife? And literally every woman in the room raised their hand except for me. I just sat there. I was like, y'all are crazy. You don't know what you want. And then she asked, how many of you are dating someone in ministry? And it was like, just me. And I was like, what is happening here? What is this? But she was making the point like, you need to date someone who's headed the same direction as you. And if you feel called to ministry, like don't be dating someone who's not in ministry. You know what I mean? And while I see her point, I think being called to be someone's wife is not really something I've ever seen in scripture.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough. So that's kind of why I kept my hand down. I was like, I'm not
Yeah.
sure that's like a biblical calling, you guys. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen God call people to suffering, and I've seen God call people to a place where they've never been and to jump out in faith. I've seen God call people in scripture to stop what they're doing, turn around and do something else. I've seen him call them out of sickness into health. I've seen him call them into all kinds of amazing adventures with him, and none of them were job specific. So I think the question of calling for all of us is kind of tricky when it comes to scripture. And I think when we start saying things like, I'm called to be a pastor, you kind of make a pronouncement on your life so that at some point, if that calling changes, you kind of feel like a failure. And I think that's a dangerous, teetering place to be, because I think God has called me right now to be a student and to do this crazy thing, like get my master's in my 40s. Like, crazy. It's so crazy. And I think he's called me to be present for my children, who are going through some crazy stuff as teenagers in New York City. Like, this is bonkers. I think he's called me to be a wife to this man, John, but very little of that has anything to do with his vocation.
Right.
Because if he decides that he wants to be, you know, a plumber, I guess I love plumbers somewhere. I don't know why I keep bringing them up. Guys, they don't get enough credit.
Somebody tell John that's his fallback job.
But if he changes jobs, I'm still called to be his wife. So what do I do with that if I'm called to be a pastor's wife and he's not a pastor anymore? You know, like, that's crazy. So I think we have to constantly be changing our perspective to our identity found in Christ, and our confidence in the fact that we're called to be faithful people. And that doesn't matter what job you're in. You're supposed to be faithful people. You're not called to results. Hallelujah. You're not called to make anything happen. You're called to be faithful people. And I think that has saved me so many times from a complete and utter meltdown, because I have so much church baggage. If I thought I was called to be a pastor's wife, I think I would have been really angry at God for that calling. But I don't think that's what I'm called to be. I think I'm called to be in his presence.
Yeah, that's just like some of the weird framing of words in that kind of like concept from, I mean, we got that growing up. I think so much has changed for the better in that kind of context, you know, like, oh, you're just you. That's good and refreshing to hear.
This episode is sponsored by EFCA East, a district of the Evangelical Free Church of America. EFCA East exists to help develop transformational churches among all people by helping leaders live well, lead well, and multiply. We're here to serve you, whether you're in one of the 6 states that make up EFCA East or not. You can find more from us at efcaeast.com.
What's your biggest piece of advice for somebody who's a pastor's wife?
I don't know. I don't know that I have suffered enough to gain enough wisdom to be able to say for sure. But I think just to seek the Lord and be close to him, because all of the rest of this can be smoke and mirrors, you know, of, am I effective? Am I helpful? Is everybody looking at me? All of these things are things that could be just happening in your mind, or they could be your reality. But the thing that is reality that you can count on is that God is faithful and God is good. And plugging into his spirit and presence. And it sounds like oversimplification, but it's really not. And it's really the most courageous, most bold, most difficult thing you could do, is to keep turning your eyes towards Jesus when it's so tempting to be a little bit famous or a little bit like, you know, like a leader in your church.
Or so scary.
You know,
to be one of those things too.
Terrifying at times. Yeah, it ebbs and flows, doesn't it? Like, every day it feels a little different. So that can't be what I'm focused on. You know, that's a tossing sea.
Yeah, I think it's hard because I love the way you reframe that, but your congregation may not always see it like that. You know, like, I think they're still always going to see Jen, Josh's wife, and me and you as like the pastor's wife.
Yeah.
And that comes with a lot of expectations that were not placed on us by our husbands or God, really. So what do you do with that? And to that point, like, I have found, and maybe it would be different for you, Ashley, because you are an extrovert and I am very much an introvert. But like, I just feel just people do not approach me and talk to me. And I don't know if that's just a vibe I give off or they know that I'm an introvert. I don't know.
Yeah.
But making friends in the church is hard because it's like
it's a weird dynamic.
It is so weird. And, you know, like people say all the time, you need to be careful with who you're vulnerable with. And I definitely amen to that. Like there's boundaries that need to happen, but like we're people too, and we still want to like connect and stuff. So how have you managed that?
Well, I'm in a place right now where I feel like I have like the closest group of friends I've ever had, which is really cool. I will say that. And they have been really supportive. And I think, unfortunately, going through suffering and some trauma over the last few years, pandemic and otherwise, other things like has showed me that people will step up and be there for me that I didn't know they would be there for me, and has been really really encouraging that they didn't disappear when something came along that was hard. They stuck in it, and I wasn't sure they would, because I thought maybe they just are my friend because I'm the pastor's wife.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, I'll say that even still with these really close, deep friendships, even recently, I was at like a weekend with my friends, which they invited me to go away with them for the weekend. So like I'm winning. I understand I'm winning. Like, just to be clear, it's not a woe is me thing. But something came up and somebody suggested something, and I was like, yeah, that's a great idea for the church. And then it was kind of like everybody moved forward as if it was going to happen. And I had to check up. I was like, oh crap, I forgot. I'm a pastor's wife. Like, you know, like, oh, they thought I was like approving something for the church. And I thought I was just being absolutely agreeing with their cool ideas. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, so I had to like kind of backtrack and be like, guys, I don't know about this. And like, you know, like whatever. And I'm not going to lie, I was like a little bit like, oh.
Yeah.
I thought, but what I had to do was kind of recalibrate and go, just because they did that one time doesn't negate all the times they showed up for me when I was hurting and all the times they were there for me. Like, it's okay if they get confused by that, you know? And I think if you're going to be any kind of a leader, pastor's wife or otherwise, there's just going to be these moments where people see you in that role and they forget that you're a human and they forget that you're just being yourself. And I think I have to be aware of clarifying some things from time to time. And sometimes I'll even say like, hey guys, I'm just going to say this is Ashley. This is not really pastor's wife talking, but I think that's really cool, you know, which I hate that I have to do that, but to resent it is just to deny reality and to not try to like, it makes me miss out on friendships. So I can either sit in the corner and be like, I don't have any friends, or I can just decide to engage in it in any way possible. And I've decided to engage in it and just be like, all right, well, this is just part of it. And I mean, not that, again, I never would try to compare my situation to a person of color, but my friends who are people of color talk about the microaggressions they get from people and the way that they feel different and other. And I just don't think there's any temptation that's not common to man. I think all of us are having like to feel different and other and isolated. And I think Satan just does such a good job of convincing pastors' wives that they're the only ones. And that they're the only people who ever feel like somebody different, that can't fit in, that doesn't belong. But like everybody feels like that sometimes. And everybody has to work to break down the walls that are between us. And sometimes I'm the perpetrator and sometimes I'm the victim. And I kind of recognizing that is really helpful, because then we just all have to live in tension with that together and face those awkward moments in Christ-like confrontation and say like, and what I had to do is be like, guys, I forgot that you guys think I'm the pastor's wife. And they were like, oh, is that how that felt? And I'm like, yeah, that's how that felt. Because I tell them all the time, like, sometimes I feel really different because I'm the pastor's wife, you know? And I'm an ambivert, by the way. I can extrovert for like a certain amount of time, and then I hit a wall and slide down.
It's so interesting and complex, you know, like I remember doing undergrad work. And so this is a little bit, I don't know if these statistics would hold up today if people were polled, and I might botch them a little bit. So all you Google nerds out there can correct me. Just email Emily Gardner at EFCA. But I think it was 85% of pastors' wives viewed the most traumatic event that they've experienced was the day their husband took a job in the church. I don't know if those statistics will hold up, but I certainly have talked to enough pastors' wives that would admit to feeling that way, given a safe space. And I don't know. Does
Yeah.
that how does that sound to you guys? Does that sound on or off, or could you
I
see
did
it?
not love it. I did not love it, but I wouldn't call it the greatest trauma I've ever experienced. But wow, that's really like that's interesting. I want to go look that
I
up
might be
and
messing
find
up
out
the
more about
way
that.
that was worded. And I'm not going to tell you when I
Hmm.
graduated from undergrad. So
No,
no. But
I graduated last year from undergrad, so
yeah, how's that hit? What do you think about that?
Okay, I am a weird person in the realm of I knew Tim. We met when he was getting his MDiv. He was in seminary, finishing up seminary. So I knew going in that he was going to be a pastor.
you
This
were not
is,
lied to. You were not
I was
lied to.
not lied to. I knew
Okay,
going
got
in.
it.
And my natural bent, I'm an Enneagram 1, and I really like to feel like I'm doing the right thing.
Mm.
And grew up not necessarily my parents' fault, but just more in a legalistic environment. And I thrive in that environment because I'm just like, I will check all these boxes and I will do the right thing. So for
Yeah.
me, and like I adore my uncle who is a pastor, like he is father figure, great, wonderful person. And so I was like, I'm going to be a pastor's wife. I'm going to marry a pastor. That is like another awesome checkbox, like to make me feel like I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
That shattered very quickly. So like I knew, and I was excited going into it, like there's trauma associated with our trajectory in ministry. So yeah, I could see how that would cause a lot of PTS situation.
Yeah, post traumatic
You know what's
stress.
funny? I'm an Enneagram 7, so
Okay.
I can relate to the one step some, but the whole like stifling of my freedom, that is like my biggest problem with pastor's wife, because it's like I don't want anybody watching me because it means that I can't like just do whatever I want and make jokes and say cuss words and whatever I feel. You know what I mean? Like I want to be able to just like tell the joke and not worry about it. And so yeah, but it's been a spiritual discipline though and a help for me to see like these boundaries and these walls that these people have placed for me have actually done my heart good. Like I've gotten really into some Dallas Willard books lately for spiritual formation. I love Dallas Willard. And it's such a weird shift for a 7 to be like, let's do the same spiritual practice every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's very forming and very helpful and heart shifting for me to do the same spiritual practice and to like focus my heart and stay present in all the things I need to do. And I think being a pastor's wife sort of helps with that, which I kind of hate to admit because it makes me I hear my 20-year-old self being like, you sold out. You
Yeah.
sold out. What are you doing here?
Mm-hmm. Being a pastor's wife has ushered in a lot of humility for me of like, just because I'm a pastor's wife does not mean I'm a great person or that I can't
You're
fail.
not?
And I don't like, who'da thunk?
What?
We've come at these in two different ways, but they have both taught us very wonderful things that are really actually difficult, but good in the long run.
It's so
Yeah.
cool to listen to you guys talk about it. My poor wife, I was telling her, like, okay, I'm in ministry right now, but I'm getting out. Like, I was, 23 credits into licensure and in counseling, and I was like,
Liar, liar,
I
liar.
know, bait
What?
and switch.
oh,
Again.
man, I should go buy her something.
A beach house. Go buy her a beach house.
That's it.
That
That's the
would
thing.
be
Yeah.
my favorite thing to buy her,
You nailed
except
it.
I'm a pastor. It's
Oh,
not working out.
maybe a candy bar. Was that too far the other way or
I could probably do something
yeah,
better than
maybe. Okay, all right.
that.
We'll
Oh,
get there.
Another dog.
we just got the
No,
best puppy
no one
in the
needs that.
world. Our
Oh,
hearts are full in the
that's
dog
good.
category. Tell us about, so there's a couple of different things. I want to talk about the singing thing, and I want to also talk about the stand-up comedy thing. And
Okay.
I'm ready for some funny stuff. So you did
Oh,
stand-up
great.
comedy, and you opened for
Okay.
other comedians.
I mean, a little. Okay, you guys, like just a little. It was only like, I think I've done it like 4 times. So it's not a lot of times, but we have a comedian, we have like a thing every year. We do this like laugh all night thing to raise money for our mission in Haiti that we work with that does churches and schools in Wells, which New Mission Haiti, big plug. They're awesome. You guys go check them out.
Mhm.
Every year I go to dinner, like I get a babysitter because I'm like, I want to go to dinner with the comedians because I'm kind of a comedy nerd. Like I kind of like the old stuff. Like
Me
I like
too.
Carol Burnett. I love Don Knotts and Tim Conway and like Bob Hope and like I'm like deep into
Old,
the comedy
old
nerdness.
classics.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I also love like Nate Bargatze and Brian
I'm
Regan.
going to see Nate.
Oh, are you really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. I'm so jealous. Yeah, so I love all those guys. I love comedy so much. So I go out and I like geek out with these guys because they're all nerds too. So it's fun because I'm like, oh, I'm so fascinated by this. And how do you think about this joke? And what did you do? So one year is the same guy had been there twice, Johnny W. He's also very funny, big plug. And he was like, you have to try it. You can't just keep like having dinner with us and being excited about it. You have to try it. And I was like, I'm not gonna try comedy. So they pushed me a little bit and they're like, okay, next year you're gonna MC. And it's an easy gig because people won't see it coming because you're the pastor's wife and they're going to be like, ah, she's not funny. And then you'll be even marginally funny will be funny enough. Like, you know? So I put together a tight five. That's what they call it in the
Tight
biz.
five.
Okay. And yeah, and I did it and it went really well. It was really fun. So then I did it the next year and then I did it at like a pastor's conference we went to. Somebody found out about it and asked me to like do some stuff for the pastor's wives. And yeah, so that's the history of my comedy career. It's really not a very exciting history, but it was fun.
Stand
It's
up
fun.
is
I
a
like
goal of
doing it.
mine.
Yeah?
Yeah, I want to do it someday, and I've been like slowly putting together some fodder for it.
Good.
I feel like it's
you got to write out the jokes.
it's the next big
Yeah.
challenge for my communication kind of style.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is.
So give us a
It
little
is.
bit of your. Do you remember any of it?
I did one for, okay, so I talked about, so, see, I'm from the South, from Tennessee. So I talked about like how Southern women and Italian women are basically the same because I live on Staten Island now. So I'm starting to understand these things. And like, and basically at our core, we're all just like burying rage and cooking a lot. And really our worst fear, we share this, is running out of food. Italian women really don't want to run out of food, and Southern women really don't want to run out of food. So I think the biggest difference between the two is if a Southern woman is in traffic and she gets mad, she's just going to start shaking her head and getting very deliberate and saying things inside her car like, I cannot believe that they would drive like that. Like, and it's just the harder her head is shaking, the more rage is coming out. But like, it's not very visible. Whereas if an Italian woman gets mad in traffic, like there will be fingers and there will be yelling and they might key your car and they're really not going to apologize for it. And they're going to walk away like, that's how you learn. That's how you know. And it's the end of it. And they don't feel it anymore. But that Southern woman will be talking about that experience like the rest of her life. Like she'd be like, do you remember that one time in traffic when somebody cut me off? Like, yeah.
I wish our
So
listeners could see the head shake you're doing
I know.
as you
I
do
know.
that voice.
You have to. The accent doesn't work unless you shake your
it's so
head. You
good.
have to do it.
No, but I honestly feel I wish you could have done this entire interview with your Southern accent. Like that brings me so much joy.
I feel like we
So
need to
good.
have a comedy night at our. So for those of you that are listening that aren't a part of like the district that we're all involved in the EFCA East, like we have this conference every year. I feel like we need comedy night.
You
That would
really
be
do.
Amazing.
You really do.
You just signed yourself up, Ashley.
Oh my gosh.
AW can headline.
I
Oh
love it.
Lord, I don't know if
That
I'm
would
ready for
be-
that. I'll give you some names of some people who are very good. Yeah, it's fun and like really just it's storytelling, which is another thing I've just sort of been doing my whole life too.
And you're a gifted singer too. And I remember watching on social media or something, you had an issue. I don't know what it is, and you don't have to share it, but you lost your voice or they thought you weren't going to be able to sing again
Yeah.
ever?
I had vocal polyps. So this is actually like part of pastor's wife story baggage too, and I'll say this, like when we came to our church in New York, it was really different. They really did notice I was the pastor's wife. As gentle as our church in Virginia was, this is like not gentle as our church in Virginia in New York has been. Because it's sort of like that, like they all used to be Catholics. Anybody who's a Christian used to be a Catholic here. And so they're just like, you're the priest's wife? The priest can have a wife? Like, so it's like a special kind of holiness to me here, which is really triggering. Like, again, they're stepping on landmines. They did not plan, but they're stepping on them. So I actually started having panic attacks when we were here. I would sing, there were 3 services, and I would sing the first service, lay in someone's office, have a panic attack, and then come out and try to sing the 3rd service, which is such an unhealthy thing to do. But I wasn't cognizant of the fact it was a panic attack really, and I really didn't know what was happening. I just felt sick and kind of like I couldn't catch my breath. I wasn't putting it together that it was panic or that it was triggered by this like church experience of feeling everyone's watching me, everyone's watching my kids and oh no, this is my childhood experience and I can't get out, like emotional claustrophobia. And so what would happen is I would sing through panic. And if you ever had like anxiety or panic, you get kind of a choked feeling in your throat because the muscles in your throat are kind of seizing up. And I would just keep singing. And I injured my voice. I injured my vocal cords. At one point, I went to a rehearsal and I opened my mouth to sing, thinking something would come out, and nothing came out. It was a very scary experience, especially for someone who, I mean, I will admit, had found much identity in what I could do for God through singing. And God really had to pry my fingers from that idol, buddy. Ooh, it was a very, very transformative experience to have to face losing something that I felt so defined by, which I guess a lot of pastors could probably relate to, huh? So I had to have surgery. I had 3 polyps on my vocal folds, and they had to go in and basically like scrape them off, which meant I had to go 10 days without speaking at all. And they were pretty insistent, do not even walk around too much, because if you trip and go, you could injure yourself again. You have to have surgery again. So yeah. And then after 10 days, I could talk for 1 minute a day for a couple of weeks. And then I could add 5 minutes a day for a couple of weeks, and then 10 minutes a day. And we had to gradually increase how much I use my voice. I got like monkified, like total monk silence stuff by force. And it turned out to be really spiritually formative to have to really think about. I don't know if you should try it sometime for yourself. Try to give yourself 5 minutes a day to say words and just see what that does for what you say. It's incredibly powerful. So,
I can only imagine. So did you have kids at this point?
Oh yeah, this was 2017. This was just a little, not too long ago. So I couldn't talk. And I figured out that I could type things into Alexa and Alexa would announce it for me. And my son, Charlie's little, and he was like so confused by this. Because I would be like, come downstairs. Alexa would be like, come downstairs for dinner. And my son would be like, Alexa, what are we having for dinner? And I'm like, no, this is mommy talking. Mommy is typing through Alexa. And he'd be like, Alexa, why is mommy typing? Like, it was just so confusing.
Oh my gosh.
But I did it. The first time I sang after the whole experience was on an Easter Sunday. And we shared testimonies. Different people were sharing testimonies about what God had done for them. And my testimony, I recorded a video where I explained, like, I found out this year in the truest way possible that what I do for God doesn't define his love for me. That what I do for God is just joy. It's just a gift that he gives me to partner with him. It's not something he requires of me. It's not a burden to bear. It's something he gave me so that I can enjoy it. And he just loves me even if I don't do anything. And it's a really crazy revelation. And then the lights come on and I'm singing How Great Is Our God. So it was pretty crazy.
Like massive goosebumps. What do they call it in the South? Glory tears?
Glory tears.
I don't know.
My mom says when the Lord squeezes your heart, the juice comes out your eyeballs. My mom says.
My gosh.
That's
my sister-in-law
so
is from the South. And some of the things she like tells me about her church experience, I'm just like, you have to be making that up. But I think it's real. Like,
she's not.
You just, wow. Okay.
It's real. It's very real. Yes. We sang Bringing in the Sheaves. You know that gold hymn, Bringing in the Sheaves, which I as a child thought was Bringing in the Sheeps. I was like, Bringing in the Sheeps, like just singing it along. Like that's, and I was like an adult when I opened it. What's a sheep?
I know, exactly. Like, why does that make it any more clear? It would make more sense to bring in the sheep.
Yeah, the sheep's got to come in. Yeah, you got to shear those sheep.
Oh, man. Okay, I actually want to know more about the silence thing. How did that affect your family and you?
Oh, it was crazy. John kept saying, I feel like you're mad at me. And I'm like, just kind of shaking my head. Like, I think everybody was listening more when I did talk. I think it made me aware of my words enough that I started thinking differently about how I speak. Not to mention, like, it became pretty important that I use a good tone, that I use the right tone all the time, that I'm not yelling or that I'm not talking too gravelly down here. I have to really think about keeping my voice in the right register to protect my vocal cords from rubbing together too hard. So yeah, there was a lot of consideration for that too. And people thought about the way they talk to me. because they knew I couldn't respond quickly. It really is very formative. I really recommend everyone try it for a while because you think really hard about what you're communicating. You think other people think about what they're communicating to you because you are listening intently. Because you can't think about what to say back because you already know you're not saying anything back. It's a very interesting project. You're going to try it, aren't you? I can see it in your face.
I know, I might, man.
I'm going to make everybody practice it on car rides.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Now we're talking.
Hey guys, I heard this is really formative. We just
it's
nobody
a
talked
spiritual practice.
Okay, I have more questions about you being a female in leadership. So clearly you have mad leadership skills. You are you project. Yes, got the
I got so much riz.
So what has your experience been like as a female with leadership qualities?
Oh man. Well, I felt like I was way too much most of my life. And I would even say that, well, I know I'm a little bit much, like, because I can be a little bit circus come to town sometimes, if I get in the right mood, and I'm learning to temper that because that's just a good thing to temper it. But I also think I tempered too much. I think I pulled back a lot and didn't speak up when I thought something was right or didn't speak up when I had a good idea because I just felt like that wasn't really like a thing I should do. And some of that is my Southern church upbringing. I mean, there's definitely some issues with women in leadership in some of the churches I grew up in. Not every church, you guys. Like all the Southern churches get a bad rap, but there's good people everywhere. There's toxic, rough people who haven't been trained well, ignorant people everywhere. There's people who drive trucks in Staten Island, guys. Like people be everywhere, all kinds of people. So, some of the places that I had experiences in, a lot of the teachings were that I felt like a threat. I think that's the best way to put it to some of the places where we were, especially as a teenager. Whereas I felt like my brother's 2 years younger than me and the same Enneagram personality number as me, which is weird. So he and I sometimes will talk about this because he's like grown up and done therapy like me now. And we're like kind of, wow, look at that experience. Isn't that strange how you had this experience as the same personality type in the same church, in the same family, in the same situation, and you were invited into this kind of conversation or this kind of leadership, or you were expected to do this, but like I had to come in the back door. I had to do it around this other way to do it. But I didn't feel the loss of that because that felt like my normal. So what happened was I married a man who is encouraging of my leadership skills. So that was kind of weird. And I'm like, you want me to what? Like you're cool with that? Okay. You want me to contribute to our financial discussion?
Like,
like, I don't know if I can do that. Okay. Then I also at this church here in New York City, I noticed that men speak to me, they look me in the eyes and they ask me questions about what I think about things. And I started going, why does that feel weird? And I started noticing like that was not my experience always. Like I don't know that anyone wanted to hear what I had to say about anything for a long time. Yeah, I'm just saying I'm noticing it now. I haven't fully processed this whole journey because I've been a Southerner and now I'm a full-on Yankee because I've been here 8 years and I've been told 7 years is what makes you a New Yorker. So
oh wow, okay.
Congrats.
I'm here.
Some time to go.
Yeah, I'm here now. I'm in, but yeah, I don't know how to like answer it yet. You hear me stumbling over it because I'm still very much processing it and what it is and what happened and how it works. And I can say I feel free now. I feel good to walk in that leadership and I feel like I'm welcomed into spaces and to speak into things, but I can't fully explain why.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, we were just at the Exponential conference and I don't know if you know Katie Cole.
Maybe I do.
I went to one of her workshops. She wrote a book called Developing Female Leaders. I love her perspective was like, no matter what theological, like where you fall in the theological spectrum, you should be empowering women. Like the church can still empower women no matter where they fall in the theological spectrum. And that it is just a secondary issue and not like a salvation issue.
But I think that the problem comes with the definition of empowering too, because I think we get to this point where, I don't know, there's a Bible Project video about oppression in scripture I think is really helpful because they have this visual of these little guys, these little stick figures on stair steps. And they're like, as soon as someone who's being oppressed gets the power back, they start to oppress because it's the sin nature in us, right? And like we try to like take over. So when we say empowering women, I think sometimes we have some baggage about that. Like, well, if somebody has all the power, then they'll oppress. And they're not necessarily wrong about that because history has shown people group gets power, they oppress. Like it kind of is what happens. But I think when we talk about empowering women, I think we also have to say you have to realize that the women themselves, a lot of us feel that we don't have power. So empowering us means just telling us what's true already. We're not trying to like hand over more responsibility or like turn things around in such a like, I think everybody thinks we have to like revolutionize it. But like with most things, I think small personal relationship steps are the most important, most impactful things that we do. So just telling your daughters or telling the women in your church, like, hey, we'd love to hear what you think about this. Or, hey, we really expect that you're going to lead in this ministry that you're doing because you have leadership skills. That's all we're talking about. Like, I don't think we need to overcomplicate it and turn it into a big thing because most of just like how I don't think politics fixes any of our problems. I think what fixes our problems are our personal relationships around us and the way we treat people in our neighborhoods and our communities. Those are the important and the hardest things to do because we don't get credit for those. And we don't get to be like the winners. You know, we just get to be faithful people. And that's really not sexy.
Yeah. And that was one of her points is that like it's the weird pendulum swing of women have previously had no voice. And now the expectation is that honoring female leadership means that you need to have a female pastor. Yeah. And that's sure that works for some people. If that's where you fall on the spectrum, theological spectrum, awesome. Then do that. If you aren't okay with that, that doesn't mean that the theology is degrading to women, you know, and that you can still identify female leaders and call them into that in a variety of different ways. So I thought that was really encouraging.
Yeah.
Well, we are about out of time. So, Ashley, we do this thing at the end of every episode where we ask our guests, and we share our responses too. And maybe Emily will grace us by going first. What is saving you right now? It doesn't have to be serious. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's silly. But what is saving your life right now?
So our kids are in public school. They go to school Monday through Friday, and Tim has always taken Friday off. So we're just in a fun season where Friday is our date day, essentially. And like we've gone through seasons of like that's our house project day, and we just do whatever. But we generally always include food, and there's this really fun bakery called Leah's Cakery that's near our house, and they we always go and get breakfast sandwiches and a cinnamon roll. And it just like we were out of town this week, and I knew like we would be coming home late last night, but then I could wake up and get my Leah's Cakery stuff.
I feel like I've seen Tim post pictures of that place on Instagram.
Yes, he 100% has, because we are there almost every Friday. It is.
Yeah.
So
is it grammable? It's very Instagrammable.
It is very grammable. Okay. Yes.
Tim's got good grammable taste. Like he knows what's up.
Nice.
He's got a good gram.
He's got Riz on gram.
Yeah, everybody should go follow him.
Yes, he's got the Riz on gram.
Okay.
The baseball season is saving my life right now. I'm so happy that it's back. It's a long winter. I'm a fan of basketball to a certain extent. One of my best friends is associate head coach of Baylor basketball, and they're kind of struggling right now. Don't tell them I said that. If we're recording this leading up to March, everybody, I don't know when you're listening to it, but baseball's here, and I love just being in the dirt and the grass and outside. Just love everything.
Well, you're a baseball dad too.
Yeah,
like Dylan plays,
baseball
right?
dad. We're baseball fans, so it's a lot of fun.
That's cool. You know, hear me out. Rosemary, maple, oat milk latte.
Oh,
okay. Yes.
I respect somebody that has drilled down their drink that specific.
Just let's go here for a minute. Let's just talk about it, guys. There's a Joe Coffee in the city, and I ordered it, and I told the guy hold the rosemary because I was like, well, weirdo puts the rosemary in their coffee, and he didn't hear me, or he just ignored me because he's a hipster. And he's like, she doesn't know what she wants.
She don't know.
Either way, I'm grateful to him because he has saved my life. Because this is the best latte in the world.
Really?
It is. And listen, this is high praise because like I'm an Enneagram 7. I love everything. I love everything. I love all the things in all the world. So for me to definitively say to you, this is the best thing, is like, it kind of hurts my heart a little because then I have to give up all those other options that I also enjoy. But this is the best thing. It's
That
real
sounds
good.
actually amazing. So is it just that one place that has it?
It is, but I also this is like, we're out of time, but we were also on a horse farm doing a
Hmm.
cattle drive as a family in New Mexico a few weeks ago. Because we're nuts. And the lady who runs the place was like, I've got rosemary essential oil and maple. And she like made a quick coffee with, and it was crazy good too. So I'm like, maybe I just like this thing so much now. So
No cap.
yeah,
That's super weird.
that's
Normally,
good.
I would think that was super weird, but we were in Orlando and went to this very hipster coffee shop downtown, and Tim got a mule,
Mm.
which normally like think Moscow Mule, but this was nitro cold brew, ginger beer,
Yes.
bitters, mint, and lime.
Okay.
So there's like no alcohol, but it was the guy, we asked him like, what do you think about this? He's like, it's the most polarizing drink we have, but I love it. So if you like those elements, you should get it. And Tim got it, and it was very interesting and very good. So like, I'm into the weird
Aw.
coffee thing.
I love that there's like a drink that's polarizing. Like, this is gonna put us all on sides. Everybody get ready.
I like my
awesome.
drinks like our grandfathers drank them. I don't need any of this
Just black.
weird,
Oh, yeah?
like, let's get nerdy about our beverages kind of stuff. Just hit me with
Do
the hard.
you, or do you just feel like you have to? Like, is
put
this
a little
like cultural
dirt in it.
pressure on you that you
A
feel
little
like?
gravel, a little dirt. Just have some coffee. I want to brush the coffee grinds out of my teeth afterwards. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay. You know what? If you need to identify with the suffering of Christ in that way, my friend, you
On that
you
note,
do you.
I know.
on that note, we don't have we really need a better way to say bye on this.
I know. We say it
Okay.
every single time.
Ashley, you have been a phenomenal guest. We're so glad
Thanks.
that you've been on here. Thank you so much. It was
Yep.
awesome. And
Super, super
I don't know,
fun.
like we need some kind of like outro, but we don't have one. So we're just gonna say bye. See y'all. See you
Bye.
later, everybody. Thanks for listening. The Church Chat podcast is for educational purposes only. We dive deep into important and sometimes sensitive conversations and topics about life and ministry. Please know that the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely the views and the opinions of the guests and the hosts and do not necessarily represent the organizations that we work for. Nor should our views or opinions be considered a full perspective of circumstances that may be mentioned in this podcast. Our perspectives are limited, and so will be this podcast. What we hope to do is have conversations and spark greater conversations that will lead leaders and their organizations towards greater health. The Church Chat podcast is edited by Emily Gardner and produced by Emily Gardner and Josh Ott. The Church Chat podcast is supported by EFCA East, an Eastern District of the Evangelical Free Church of America covering 6 states. EFCA East helps leaders live well, lead well, and multiply, helping churches find new vitality and multiply transformational churches on the East Coast. The EFCA is multiplying transformational churches among all people. For more information, visit efcaeast.com. We hope you enjoyed this podcast and can't wait to see you on the next Church Chat episode.